Okay, in this segment, I want to put forth the idea of social behavior as an exchange of information. And I know I talked earlier about informational social exchanges or social interactions, but this is different. I want you to understand that every social interaction is an exchange of information. And what makes it complicated is not is that it's many different kinds of information being given to you all at the same time, which require different kinds of processing and different levels of awareness. So I'm going to put them into three broad categories. The first is lingual and verbal. And that means the kinds of words that people use. And this is challenging because although you can often understand the words that people mean, words are tricky, especially in English. There's two reasons that they're tricky. The first is context. Well, I guess the first is the definitions themselves. Many words have different definitions, and many people don't actually know what words mean. Like, they might know, they have an idea of what they mean, but they don't know the actual meaning. So they may not be using the correct words, and you might misinterpret what they're saying. Second is contextual. A lot of words mean things based on context. And not just context in a sentence, but also context in a social situation. So my best example for this would be, in the previous case where I'm saying, I'm talking to some woman I don't know. I'm saying, oh, hey, darling, can you please open this door for me? My use of the word darling it really conveys information. It conveys information about, where I'm from and how old I am, perhaps, because that kind of use is not really that common anymore. It's like something like some old dude from the South or something would say that, probably. Some like old white cowboy from the South or something. And it conveys information about my view on women, or it might not. I mean, that's why it's so confusing. I might just think that women are these, these like darling means it's like an endearment term, so it means somebody who is dear to you. Obviously this strange woman isn't dear to me particularly, but so it kind of reveals something about my attitude towards women, or the way that I think is appropriate to treat women who I don't know. And then of course there's also accent. Accent isn't something I'm going to talk about a lot, but it really does, inflection, it really does mean a lot. And if you can pay attention to it, you can learn a lot. Then the second is body. And this means posture and facial expression. And this is also challenging, especially for a lot of people in our community, because facial expressions change and they're very subtle. The human eye, supposedly, can detect facial expression changes as small as like a quarter or an eighth of an inch. And that's really pretty subtle, even from some distance, actually. That's pretty subtle. And facial expressions change throughout the course of a sentence. So you really have to be looking. You have to understand the connection between facial expression and body posture. Body posture is so huge. At some point in this class, we're going to talk about facial expressions, the 6 basic facial expressions. And what you have to understand is that there are 6 basic facial expressions that can be extrapolated from the face alone. So all other facial expressions that aren't in those 6 basic ones need some body cues to recognize what they are. They're ambiguous unless you have the rest of the body as well. And even then they can still be ambiguous. And then the third one is sort of I'm going to call it energetic. And it's sort of a subtle one. It's sort of one that's hard to pin down. But a big part of his tone, his voice tone, is huge in determining the meaning of a sentence, and can really be hard to interpret sometimes. That's something you just really have to practice. So tone is huge. And then also the character of movement. So if you've seen seen somebody who's really energized, they're like, oh yeah, and they're, like really moving fast. That really translates different information than somebody who's like, oh yeah, and even the speed of speech really makes a big difference. So I think that to me falls under the category of energetic, like the way that somebody is showing up. And the last one is I want to call it subtle expression. And I don't really have a definition for it. The best thing I can do is tell you, there's something, if you see somebody who's really charismatic, like somebody who's really magnetic and really rallies other people, and they go to a party, and they start talking to people. Maybe they get out in the middle and they're like, everybody come over here. I want to talk about something. I want to make a speech. I want to start this game or whatever. There's this strange thing that happens. The party seems to come alive and revolve around that person, or some group of people. So I would call this the subtle expression. I have no idea if it's real or not. I believe, we all produce electromagnetic fields, and there's just something about, when somebody's really sad and trying to hide it, or really angry and trying to hide it, oftentimes I just know. And so that's the best I can give you. I believe that if you learn to be sensitive to it, you can kind of feel how other people are showing up, even when they're not expressing it through their face.